Hello and welcome back to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. As you might know by now, if you're a devoted listener, our goal is to help create better, more knowledgeable HVAC and building performance technicians, mainly by helping these two professions better understand each other with the ultimate goal of making customers happy in the homes they live in and the buildings they work in. Today's episode, we deviate a little bit from the technical topics, and we are joined today, Eric and I are joined by Karine LeBlanc, who's an engineer, very distinguished engineer, and international speaker. She shares her journey in the HVAC industry and emphasizes in our podcast, our discussion here, the importance of networking in a technical industry like HVAC. She talks about some of her experiences in her early days and her ties to ASHRAE, which also involve her being a distinguished lecturer in the ASHRAE Distinguished Lecturer Program. So if you're in an ASHRAE chapter and you want to get Karine to come in to talk about sort of the human side of things, human side of a technical industry, check into it, the Distinguished Lecturer Program. She also has written a book, and she talks about her motivations and some of the challenges in writing a book, and really drives home the point of the value of genuine networking and focusing on learning, continuous learning. And that's also learning and building relationships rather than just staying strictly on a transactional basis. Let's get into the discussion. Eric and I really enjoyed speaking with Karine, and we hope you enjoy listening to this too.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. Eric Kaiser here, virtually next to me, Bill Spohn. And our special guest on this episode is Karine LeBlanc, engineer, all sorts of things. Karine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you, you two, for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
And this all came about because you made an interesting post on LinkedIn. And I said, that's an interesting person. I think we should talk with her.
See the power of LinkedIn, the power of networking through LinkedIn.
Oh, so is that what you like to talk about? We talked beforehand and felt like the topic of the human side of networking in a very technical industry is something that's not often discussed. And you seem to be excited about covering that point. But before we get into that, can you give us a little bit of background on how you got into the HVAC industry and what you're doing now?
Yeah, thank you so much, Bill. Well, surprise, my dad is an HVAC teacher slash professor slash mechanical contractor. So the interesting part is that he never pushed me into the HVAC world. However, since I'm 5 years old, he would bring me to college. Then I would go to the labs. I would see compressors, piping, the ventilation duct. I would talk to all the other teachers. I would talk to the students. So I was exposed to it. And also, he would like flip houses. So I would go and see him on the construction site. So I've been exposed to it. And then when it was time to pick a job, like a profession, I looked in the little book. They give you a little book when you go to school, and I was looking at every job. And then when I stumbled when I looked at HVAC, I saw one very interesting stats. And that one interesting stat was that 100% job guarantee. So from all the other jobs that I saw in that little booklet, I didn't see that. And I was like, my nightmare would be to go study and not have a job after, or having too many people, not enough opportunities. So when I saw that, it was a no-brainer. I was like, okay, I need to go in this world. My dad was very surprised, but I think he was very happy. What I really liked about it is the diversity of it. So there is the plumbing, there is ventilation, there is electrical, there is fire protection, there is controls, there is estimating. So I'm a person who get bored super easily. So then I was like, wow, okay, I have options. If I don't like something, I can always go to the other one. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
After a career in this industry, why do you think they said 100% job guarantee? Is it the diversity aspect?
I think that nobody knows about HVAC. When you go to school, you want to become an attorney, a doctor, a dentist. You don't say, I want to become an HVAC engineer or an HVAC technician. So from their stats, they find out that everybody would go into that field, always had an opportunity. There is more demand that there is people going into that field. So That's the reason. And then I'm the only one from my cohort from technical school that went into mechanical engineering school. So everybody stayed and worked as technician. And then I was like, oh, I don't really feel like having a boss or an engineer telling me what to do. So I was like, let me go to engineering school. So I did, after that 3 years of technical school, I went to do a 4 years of mechanical engineering specialized in HVAC.
Wow. That's a lot of schooling there, but obviously you've done pretty well after that. So what did you do with that? What did you turn that into long term? What are some of the steps and different things you've done in the industry after coming out of engineering school?
Well, I realized very soon that I was not your typical engineer, which is my trademark. And I realized that after my first internship, I was not so much a person that liked to do calcs and be in front of a computer all day. I'm super extroverted. I like to meet people. I'm super social. So after my first internship, I was like, oof, I'm not sure if I like engineering. I like the HVAC portion, but I'm not sure if I like engineering. Then I kept going because this is how I was raised. When you start something, you finish it. And my second internship was in sales. This is when I realized I'm like, oh my God, my interviewer told me, hey, you're a salesperson. And I was like, oh, I'm a salesperson? Okay, cool, awesome. And then I had my second internship and I loved it, right? I worked as a sales engineer, inside sales engineer. And this is when I realized I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can actually do both. I can apply the engineering part and I can do what I really like, which is being social, talk to people, help people, make a difference, have an impact. So it was a perfect blend. So thank God for internship, because otherwise I would probably be unhappy, or I would have found it, but a little bit later. So I found it right at the beginning.
Very nice. It sounds like you had a blessed career path in some ways, with the exposure in the beginning, the opportunity for the internship, and then trusting your instincts. Were other people supportive of your instincts, or did you have to do some overcoming?
What do you mean supportive?
Did people say like, hey, I see something in you that you should go pursue?
Of course, that second internship, yes, absolutely, because I was number 15 out of 15 interviewee. So I was the last one of the whole time. And my employer, or my future employer, told me right away, hey, you have a gift. You're a salesperson. And here's my business card. And you're starting like this date. You don't have to wait for the results from the school. I'm already telling you you're hired. So that was a validation, right? Or I was like, whoa, okay. So yes, that was a support. Then when I did that second internship, I spoke up at my last going away lunch. And I just said out of the blue, loud, my dream is to go to United States so I can learn to speak English. Just like that. And then one of the guy, which I really, really helped when I was inside sales, he would be the kind of guy that I'm even not supposed to support him. He's supposed to have his team, but I would do it anyway and I would be good at it. And he said, my brother-in-law lives in Los Angeles. Why don't I connect you with him? And I connected with him, and 6 months or 8 months after, I was starting an internship in California for 8 months. And this is why I moved to California. So yes, the support is there.
Nice. So that was like maybe your first experience with abrupt networking by making a loud announcement.
Yeah. And this is what I like to talk to when I do presentation to students. I always say, speak up, talk about your dreams, talk about what you want. Because if I would have not said that, I don't know where I would be. Maybe I would still be in Montreal. I don't know, but you have to say it and say it loud, because somebody will respond. And if I would have not had the relationship with that man that I helped, this would have taken another toll as well. So I always give, right? I'm a giver. I like to network and help, and I don't do it to receive anything. And life always has a way to give it back to you. And that was the first example, basically a huge example.
What are some of the projects you've worked on, to give us a little recap going backwards? Because we talked a week ago when I first met you and you'd give me some ideas, some of the projects. Could you cover those?
Project work-wise?
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked on anything and everything. So I called on engineers for 22 years. So I worked on hospital, on schools, on TI, mixed use, name it. At the beginning, I did more like of the small, like split system, rooftop packages. At the end, I was doing more custom ironing unit, more chiller, more VRF. I like that better. That was the more fun part. So these were the kind of project I worked on.
In that aspect, you're really kind of a sales engineer at that point. We talked to Tony Mormino a couple episodes back about this sales engineer. And what is that? That's a term we hear a lot, and a lot of people don't understand what it is and what they do. It was good to be able to lay that out.
Yeah. And sometimes it has almost like a bad rep. Oh, you're a sales engineer. It's like you just go and party and wine and dine and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sure, if this is how you see it. But I feel like I have the best job in the world, or I had the best job in the world. Because I'm still in sales. I think especially for me with my personality, right? A person who likes to network, who likes to meet people, who likes to help. So when you go and see a client, I never think about, am I going to go sell? I'm just going to go help. And it just happened that I get paid for it. I'm a solution provider. So people have problems, and then I go and I help them provide a solution to their problem. And their problem is they need air conditioning, or they cannot make it fit, or they need specific, and they need my expertise, and they need my product. So it's wonderful. It's never the same. It's always different. It's very challenging. It keeps you on your toes. And with the constant evolution of the HVAC and the industry, you never get bored because there is always something. Oh, there's a new product. Oh, there's a new refrigerant. Oh, there's a new code. And there you go. Boom, boom, boom. So it's wonderful. And I think I have the best job in the world.
It is definitely an exciting and not an industry one sits still in.
Absolutely. Always on your toes.
I've often described it as a moving river. And if you stand still, that river is going to pass you by really, really quickly.
Absolutely.
You've done a few other things as well. I see that you're also an author as well as an international speaker. That gives you a lot of chances to network across many areas. And what value do you really see networking bringing to people in a constantly evolving industry like HVAC?
The value, when I moved, for example, from Montreal and I moved to LA, I had no friends, no family, and I could barely speak English. So the first thing I did was to join ASHRAE at the local chapter. And I signed up to become the reception chair. So every time somebody would come in, I would sign them up. So I would get to know them all, their name. I could say hi. And I don't know why I did it, but I think that was the smartest move ever. It was not planned. It was just like, hey, how can I help? And they put me there. And I'm like, cool, perfect job ever to meet everybody. And then I would go on a job site, and then I would see the people from the meeting. And I remember vividly, I think 2002, right? It was a long, long time. I'm on the roof and I see Ralph. And I'm like, Ralph is the boiler guy, and he was invited to that job site as well. So I show up and I'm like, oh, hi, Ralph. How are you? So instantly you get a connection. You get almost like a credibility or an acceptance because you show up to a job site. Now the owner sees that connection, or the engineer or the architect. And then the collaboration is so much easier because I already met Ralph. I already spoke to him. He already knows me. So now we're almost friends. So I feel like it's a huge difference when you want to work, when you already met the person or you have a person in common, a connection. That's a long time ago, and I still remember like it's yesterday. So this just to show you how impactful it is.
Again, you followed that hunch to join ASHRAE to become the reception chair. It was maybe an unrealized strategic move on your part, which speaks towards the aspect of sincere networking versus just following a recipe and maybe somebody else's recipe. What are your thoughts on that?
When you tell me that, the first thing that comes to mind, this is why I says, is because I think about real estate agent. When you go to an event and there is a real estate agent, oh my God, I feel like they always have an agenda. And I'm sorry to all my friends in the real estate industry. I still love you. You're my friends. But you never know. Are they doing it for me? Are they actually interested? Or there is something behind it? When is it going to come? So I don't like this. And I can smell it. And I feel like if I can smell it, other people can do it too. So I like to go an event, networking, and just go into a giving mentality. So something that I want to know more about you, right? I'm curious. And like I would show up at an ASHRAE meeting and I usually know everybody. And I would say, if I see somebody I don't know, I'm like, oh, they're new. So I would go, I would take initiative and hi, I'm Karine. Why are you here? What got you here? How did you hear about the event? Was it the speaker? Was it the place? So it's not like, okay, today I'm going to make so many connections. I'm going to close some sales. I'm going to go talk to that customer. No, not at all. Because I don't like when people do that to me. So I really don't want to do that to people. I understand you may want to have a plan, meaning like if you go network, you don't want to get stuck with the same people for the whole night. The whole point is to move on. So you can just be courteous and say, it was very nice meeting you. And then you move on and you can work the room, like we say.
But don't look at your watch and say 4 minutes and 59, 5 minutes, bye.
Exactly. That's a big deal. So this is how I like to network.
Very organic and patient approach.
Yes, be yourself and show interest and try to find common grounds. This is more genuine.
How would you say for someone who isn't as outgoing a personality, but feels a draw to that, how could they approach it? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very difficult for some of the engineers in the industry because the engineers, a lot of them are more introvert. It's known, it's a fact. So sometimes they don't really know how to approach it or they're scared and they don't know what to say. I actually had a client at the beginning of my career who was also a friend and we were hanging out and he was like, Karine, how do you do this? And I'm like, do what? It's like all that small talk and the topics and there is no silent. And he says, I go to those events. I never know what to say. I'm stuck. And I was like, oh, I don't know. It's like, I didn't know, right? It was like 20 years ago. And I was just asking them, I says, are you not curious? Don't you want to meet that person? Don't you want to ask questions? So this is what something I would say. It's not always easy, but I notice that depending of who I talk, they will go on the subject of technical if they're not so sure about their not feeling very good or they're a little stressed and they're going to go jump into what they know and what they're comfort zone. So have you heard about this? And I'm like, oh my God, I could care less about this. I just left work. Can we talk about something else? I like to talk about the personal stuff. And it's proven that people prefer to be talking on the personal stuff, even from the first time you meet them. So research shows, and it's proven that people like that better. And I feel like the technical can come after. When you establish a rapport, you establish a good relationship, and there's, hey, by the way, can I pick your brain on this? It's so much easier than if you go and like, hey, blah, 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 blah about chillers and rooftop and codes and stuff. So it just depends of the person. It really depends of where your comfort level is.
You're talking a lot about in-person networking here. How do you think things like LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram and the social media, because we see a lot of technicians and engineers and things like that on these platforms today, how has that changed the networking landscape and what can people do to really leverage that?
Oh, I love the new virtual networking because we didn't have it before. Before you would say you would schedule a call. Now, what I see way more often is you schedule a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or whatever platform you have so you can see the person. Just when I met with Bill, we didn't schedule a call. We scheduled a virtual meeting so we can see each other. So I feel like now we can be in person virtually when you think about it. It's wonderful. I love that. And actually, I use a scheduling call so people can book an appointment with me, right? And one of them, if you go, it says schedule a virtual coffee with me. So I'm also offering to people if they want to just have a coffee and get to meet. It's there. Just click on it. You will have access to my calendar and I set it up, I think, for 20 minutes and then we get to talk. So it's something we would have never do before. We would have think about like driving, flying. I think there is so much more opportunities. And also just as far as work, when we have those meetings, now we all get 20 of us on a virtual meeting And then people will come before. That's an occasion to do some networking, right? Because if you go in 10, 15 minutes before, you're like, hi, so how's everything? Blah, blah, blah. And that's important because I always prefer to say you arrive early and you leave late for networking, but you can do that virtually as well. You can come in the call earlier and you can also stay a little bit after. So that's something that we didn't do before.
I think this opportunity to put yourself out there, not knowing what to say, but to say something, it gets easier with practice. It gets easier with experience. I like to think of it like a giant jigsaw puzzle, which I won't finish until I die. But I'm forming little pieces and corners and borders here and there, and then I find a new piece. The more you do it, there's more places to put these pieces, these experiences.
Yeah, and you can find a connector. I have so many people when I go to ASHRAE that they want to know more people. They know I'm highly connected because I love networking and I invest a lot of my time into networking. So I have people like, hey, Karine, can I see you? Can I meet with you? And then I'm like, hey, do you know this and that? And do you know this person? And this person does that. And I match them like almost like a business matchmaker. And then they become friends and then they are in it because everybody wants to be in the clique. And that's the worst, to go to an event. You don't know anybody. If you know somebody and then you know they're highly connected, just go with them. Ask them to be introduced, to be connected. It's wonderful. And I do it all the time.
How do you balance time networking versus time working without the net?
It goes together. It goes together.
It flows.
Of course. How many times that you call a client and you talk about life as well? I don't just take care of business. I'm always asking, how you doing? How's family? How's your wife? How the kids, right? Or whatever I know about their life. But that's important. I'm not about transaction. I'm about relationship.
We use at True Tech Tools, Eric and I work in, we use something called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. And there's a format for the level 10 meeting. And the first topic is a social one, basically what's happened personally and professionally in the last week. Share. So it's a sharing period of 5 minutes. We go around the room. So that helps to enrich the relationships that we have, even internally in our company.
That's wonderful. We do that in our meetings too. It's awesome.
That just made me think of back when I was still a technician in the field. We would have repeat maintenance calls every year for people. And so I would go in and I would see these people every year and I would talk to them. I would get to know them. And you come back 6 months later and, hey, how's it going? How's your kid doing? How's the dog? Whatever the topic might be. It made me think, hey, that's networking with customers as well. Different playing field. But for those out there in that service-based world, don't be afraid to network with your customers. You never can tell who they're going to know or what they know and who they can connect you with.
Absolutely. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. Very simple. When you network, you get to know them, you get to like them, and then you get to trust them. Boom. You got it all.
At what point did you decide to write a book? And was that an external or internal motivation?
It was an internal, absolutely, because I'm not a writer whatsoever. And who am I to write a book? So it was really internal. I really wanted to impact our HVAC, our technical industry, because I was speaking a lot. I spoke about 130 times now in 15 countries within ASHRAE and others. And you can only speak to so many people. But when you write a book, then you can impact more people. And I thought to myself, if I write this book, maybe I will help somebody. Maybe I will inspire behavior change. Maybe I will help. And I decided to do it, and I'm glad I did it. It's a great legacy, and it's almost like a therapy. When you write a book, you go through all your life, your stories, your struggle, and I wrote it, and I was like, whoa. My book is full of stories. I'm a storyteller before everything, and it's pretty cool to kind of go over everything that happened and put it as a teaching moment or a teaching book, basically. So yeah, I'm super happy, and I'm always thinking, should I write a second one?
Where's the best place to get the book if we want to put it in a link in our show notes?
On Amazon, you just type in my name and the book will show up.
Very good. We'll be sure to do that.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Is there any particular part of the book that was easy to write and a part that was hard to write?
The easy part is always talking about your story and yourself. Now, the harder part is to organize it and to make it short and simple. If I had to do it over again, I will probably have half the size of that book. But we're always afraid that we're going to miss something. It's almost like when you do a presentation, you have so much to talk about and you're like, no, you have to cut it. So the research, I did a lot of research for that book. So that was tough because you just don't want to say things that are not valid. So I needed to make sure that everything that I was saying was actually a fact check and that the research was behind it. And that it was organized well. That was the toughest part.
Yeah, research for things like that and making sure what you're saying is factual that's a big, deep hole to go down and very, very challenging.
It is.
As we wrap things up here, what would be the most impactful thing, just a closing thought that you'd like to leave the listeners with?
If we keep going on that same topic, right, the networking within the HVAC and with the technical people, I would like to say that when you network in our field, I would actually try to maybe focus on learning. So it's all about learning. You want to learn about the other person. And the more you learn, the more you grow. And I feel like we can always improve, right, in our life. We can always grow until we reach our full potential. So focusing on learning and being genuine, really going for the right reason, having an open mind, and not somebody says something and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm out. So having an open mind. So the whole thing is the more we help each other, the more it's going to come back and it's going to make our industry even stronger and healthier. So I don't know about you, but I know that I'm a phone call away from anything or any person I need. It's like if I have a problem, if I want to talk about work or personal or technical, I know who to talk to. And I know who to connect as well if you need that. So my favorite sentence is always say, doesn't matter how technical you are if nobody wants to work with you. When you network and you show yourself, you show how nice you are, you show your personality, your character, and then you become and you make friends, then everything is possible.
And one last thing I wanted to touch on, you had mentioned the number of presentations you've done nationally and internationally. Is that through ASHRAE? Did I get that right?
Through ASHRAE mostly, and a couple of them without ASHRAE. But yes, mostly it's with ASHRAE as an ASHRAE distinguished lecturer.
And how does, say, an ASHRAE member who's listening want to find you, to select you, to invite you? How does that work?
They can go to their chapter and they can discuss whether the members, the team, the officers just express that they would like to have me as a speaker at their chapter. Then they can discuss and they will just send a request to headquarter and headquarter would approve if there is no problems, which usually there is never a problem. And then I'm set.
Perfect. Any closing questions or topics, Eric?
Oh, I've got a lot, but I don't think we have all that time today.
Okay.
Did I speak too much?
Not at all. There's just so many things that I get going on in my head, but we like to keep these to a time limit here.
Absolutely.
And give people a taste so that they do go look you up. They do look at your book. They do go to their chapter and request to be a lecturer. We want to introduce people like you to the world.
If somebody wants to know more about you, where can they find out about you?
They can go to my website, KarineLeBlanc.com. So not very complicated. My first and last name. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's another form of networking that works very well, as you know. So when people post, I'm always commenting. I comment on everybody's because that's showing support. That's wanting to know more. That's a connection right away. So when something happened to you, they remember who helped them and who commented and who supported them. So yes, thank you for asking. So yeah, my website, also LinkedIn are the best ways to connect.
Nice. And we'll make sure to link that website in the show notes too.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for the additional puzzle piece in my jigsaw puzzle.
I'm so glad I could help.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks again for taking a few minutes to listen to our podcast with Karine LeBlanc as she covered from engineering to sales, building connections in HVAC. If you have any questions or have a topic, wish to suggest a topic, you can reach out to us at marketing@trutechtools.com, TECHTOOLS.com. And some of the topics we discuss require technical training for proper interpretation or safe execution. So if you're a trained pro, go right ahead. If you're not, please consult with and hire a trained pro. The Building HVAC Science Podcast is a production of TruTech Tools Limited. In full disclosure, I'm a co-owner of TruTech, and Eric Kaiser is our industry engagement manager at TruTech. The opinions voiced are those of my guests, my co-host, or myself, depending on who's speaking, of course. If you're in the market for tools or test instruments mentioned in our podcast, take a look at what our company, TruTech Tools, carries, TRUTECHTOOLS.com, and use the offer code HVACBS for a nice discount. As always, thank you for listening to and following the Building HVAC Science Podcast. If you've not subscribed, please consider doing so. There are other great trade-related resources out there and influencers, including HVAC Overtime, HVACR Videos, HomeDiagnosis.tv, AC Service Tech, Measure Quick, HVA Chicks. I always have trouble with that one. Sorry, Jen. The Misfits of HVAC, HVACR School, HVAC Shop Talk, Stephen Reardon, HVAC Reaper Guy, Tool Pros, Service Business Mastery, and Quality HVAC. I would encourage you all to take a look at HVACRschool.com. Take a look at the upcoming 6th annual HVAC School Symposium. It's going to be a great agenda, a great time, and it's tied in to the AHR Expo. It's the weekend before the AHR Expo in Orlando. Get your tickets now. They're going to sell out fast. And if you don't get a ticket, don't fret, because you can always get a virtual ticket and see the contents of the production live streamed or watch it later after the event. Anyway, HVACRschool.com. Go to the events tab, 6th annual HVAC School Symposium. Okay, we'll get you back to your whatever you were doing, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, take care.